It was supposed to be just another regular season game. The air inside Fiserv Forum buzzed with a familiar tension, the warm hum of anticipation before tip-off. Fans in green and cream poured into the arena, jerseys draped over hoodies, phones raised for selfies, kids with wide eyes trying to catch a glimpse of their heroes. Giannis Antetokounmpo was already on the court, going through his usual warm-up routine. Stretching, deep lunges, a few careful free throws, bouncing the ball with that focused calm that precedes his storm. The commentators were chatting about MVP odds. The opposing team was going through drills on the other side of the court. Everyone had their role, everything was as it should be, until she appeared. It began with just a flicker in the corner of the eye. A small figure, almost too easy to miss at first, walking along the edge of the hardwood. Not running, not sneaking, just walking, calm, steady. She couldn't have been older than 10, maybe 11, tops. Black girl, thin, in a long purple t-shirt that reached past her knees. Her hair was in tight cornrows, not a strand out of place, and on her feet, only socks. No sneakers, not even flip-flops. Just plain white athletic socks, already grey and worn at the bottom from the dirty arena floor. People noticed in pieces. A murmur started near the corner tunnel. A couple of security guards began to shift uneasily, unsure of what they were seeing. Was she part of some halftime bit? A Make-A-Wish appearance? Someone's little sister who wandered too far? But no, there was no plan, no camera crew, no sponsor. She was just there. And she didn't seem afraid. She didn't look lost. She looked like she belonged. She took slow, confident steps toward the baseline, where the players were shooting around. Her eyes weren't darting around the crowd. They were fixed ahead, on the court, on the game, on the dream. That's when Giannis saw her. At first he thought maybe it was a fan who slipped past the barrier, but when their eyes met, something shifted. Something unspoken passed between them. Giannis blinked, then stared. The ball bounced off his foot and rolled away, unnoticed. For a moment, it felt like the entire world paused. No squeak of sneakers, no buzz of the crowd, no overhead announcer voice. Just silence. Just two people looking at each other. A grown man who'd clawed his way from the streets of Athens to the very top of the basketball world, and a little girl in socks. Giannis didn't hesitate. He walked, no, strode toward her. Not rushed, not panicked, like he was drawn there by instinct. Players paused mid-stretch. Coaches turned. Cameras found him. He reached her and crouched down. They were almost eye level now. "Where are your shoes?" he asked softly. She shrugged, but her face was calm. "Don't have any," she said. That hit different. Something in Giannis's chest tightened. Maybe it was memory. Maybe it was knowing. Maybe it was seeing a version of himself years ago selling sunglasses on the street for spare coins, feet sore and bare, watching pickup games from the curb. Without saying a word, he stood up and untied his sneakers. The arena collectively gasped. He slipped them off, size 17 Nikes still warm from the pre-game sprint drills, and held them out to her. "Go ahead," he said. "Play." The girl hesitated for just a heartbeat. Then she stepped forward, and with a few wobbly moments of adjustment, she slid her feet into the shoes. They were comically big, but she didn't care. She walked out to the three-point line. The ball found its way to her. No one knows how. Maybe someone passed it. Maybe it just rolled. She took it in her hands, set her feet, breathed, and shot. The ball arced high, too high, surely, and the entire arena watched, breath held like a single collective lung. Swish, clean, perfect. The place erupted, fans on their feet, teammates clapping, coaches grinning. Even the opposing players laughed and nodded in disbelief. But Giannis just smiled. Then he turned and walked back to the bench, in socks, because he didn't need shoes to stand tall that night. He had already done something greater than any dunk or stat line. He had recognized something sacred, not talent, not potential, but belief. That quiet, invincible kind of belief only children carry with that much weightless clarity. The kind Giannis knew, the kind he never let the world take from him. And in that moment in front of thousands, he passed it on. Later, people would ask if it was staged. It wasn't. They'd wonder who she was. No one ever found out. She disappeared back into the crowd before the second quarter started. Some say her mother scooped her up and ran. Others say she just walked out on her own, shoes flopping with every step. But for a brief moment, the world saw something unforgettable. A superstar humbling himself not in defeat, but in reverence, for a girl with no shoes, and a dream too loud to ignore. The game that night went on, as all games do. The tip-off happened 10 minutes later than scheduled, but no one complained. Not a soul. The crowd was still reeling, not from the score, not from a dunk or a buzzer beater, but from something far rarer, witnessing humanity stripped of ego. The broadcasters couldn't agree on how to describe it. Some called it a moment of grace. Others said it was the purest assist Giannis had ever made. Twitter exploded, of course. Clips of the girl's shot hit 1 million views before halftime. But none of that came close to the electricity that hung in the arena. The feeling that everyone there had just witnessed something real, something without sponsors or filters or replays. Back on the court, Giannis played without shoes for the entire first quarter. Trainers brought him backups from the locker room, but he refused them. He kept moving, kept defending, kept running plays, in socks. It made no sense, strategically or medically. But somehow, it didn't matter. He still dropped 12 points in the first quarter, still blocked 2 shots, still looked like himself, only more. The crowd chanted louder than they had all season, not because the Bucks were winning, but because Giannis had reminded them what winning really meant. Kids pressed their faces against the plexiglass with renewed awe. Adults cried without fully understanding why. Something in the gesture, that quiet, wordless gift to a child, had broken through the noise of everyday life. Something had shifted. In the locker room at halftime, the shoes were back on. Giannis tied them tightly and sat still for a long time, head down, elbows on knees. His teammates watched him differently now. Not with more respect, they already respected him beyond measure, but with deeper understanding. For years they'd known him as a freak of nature, a warrior, a leader. Tonight, they saw the boy inside the man, the boy who once shared one pair of sneakers with his brother, the boy who played in open courts in Athens, waiting for older kids to give him a turn, the boy who had once been invisible. That boy had seen himself in her and acted. The second half of the game was a blur, fast breaks, alley-oops, missed free throws, three-pointers. The usual chaos. The Bucks won by 15, but the score was irrelevant. In the post-game press conference, reporters tried to bait Giannis with stats. "Talk about that third quarter, Giannis. Did you feel like the team needed you to take over?" He shook his head. "The team didn't need me. The game didn't need me. She did." A beat, a silence that hung in the room. "Who was she?" another reporter asked. He shrugged. "A kid with no shoes, that's all I know, that's enough." "But why give her your sneakers?" Giannis looked up, tired, a bit amused. "Because someone once gave me a ball. No reason, just gave it. No strings, no cameras, just gave. And that changed everything." He stood up then, cutting the questions short. Walked off the podium without another word. The room didn't protest. That night, the video kept spreading. It played on ESPN. It played on late-night talk shows. It played on morning television, spliced between weather reports and celebrity gossip. Analysts debated whether it was a publicity stunt. PR teams scrambled to issue statements. Nike released a vague tweet about inspiring acts of kindness. But none of that mattered, because the girl was gone, and no one knew her name. By the next morning, hashtags had taken over. Ida Sock Girl, Idao Giannis Moment, Ina Dream in Socks. Reddit threads popped up with blurry screenshots, people trying to track her down. Someone claimed to know her from a local YMCA. Another person said she lived in a shelter nearby, but nothing solid came forward. No mother, no father, no neighbor stepped into the spotlight. In an era where everyone wanted to go viral, this girl somehow had slipped away without leaving a footprint. That mystery made the moment even more powerful. It wasn't about backstory, it was about truth. Meanwhile, Giannis stayed quiet. No press statements, no tweets, just basketball. But something had changed in his demeanor. During shoot-arounds, he smiled more. During timeouts, He looked around the arena longer, as if memorizing the faces. At a community event the following week, he personally delivered brand new sneakers to a group of kids at a public school, without media, no cameras, just him and a box of shoes. People asked why he seemed so emotional that week. He never answered directly. But those closest to him noticed how he started writing in a journal again, how he spent longer stretches alone in the gym after hours. Something in him had been shaken loose. He couldn't stop thinking about her. Not because she reminded him of poverty or struggle, those were things he carried every day already, but because she reminded him of clarity, of purpose, of that unshakable belief that if you just show up, no matter how unprepared, how unequipped, you deserve to be seen. And that haunted him. What would have happened if security had reached her first? If he hadn't looked up in time? If the ball had bounced the other way? Would she have been stopped? Would her moment have been lost? Giannis knew too well that the world didn't always give you second chances, that little acts of kindness or cruelty could reroute a life forever. He kept imagining that shot, the form, the arc, the impossible purity of it. It wasn't just that she'd made it, it was that she'd taken it, without apology, without fear. And he wondered, when was the last time he'd done that, not as a star, not as a franchise player, but as a boy with nothing to lose and everything to prove. He couldn't let it go. And so, 2 weeks later, he did something no one expected. He started a foundation, not for scholarships, not for basketball camps, but for access. Shoes for every child who ever showed up anyway. The foundation's mission was simple. If a kid walked into a gym in socks, they would leave with shoes. No forms, no ID, no waiting list, just walk in, play. The first location launched in Milwaukee, then Athens, then Chicago. Donations poured in, brands tried to partner, but Giannis refused all endorsements for it. It had to stay pure, clean, just like that shot. And still, no one ever found her. The girl who started it all, the girl who just wanted to be on the court. Sometimes people claimed to see her, in a schoolyard, at a bus stop, on a grainy video of a youth league game. But there was never confirmation. Just stories, just shadows. But Giannis didn't need to find her, because he saw her every time a kid walked in barefoot and left smiling. She had given him something that night. Not just a story, not just a moment, but a mirror. And when he looked into it, he saw not the MVP, not the Greek freak, not the icon. He saw the barefoot boy from Sepolia, and the dream he still owed. To her, to himself, to every kid brave enough to show up in socks. Spring turned into summer, and with it came a new season, not of basketball but of something far more personal. Giannis Antetokounmpo, despite another year of dominant play and playoff pressure looming, found himself consumed not by training schedules or contract talks, but by the quiet legacy of that night. The night she showed up, the girl with the socks. She'd vanished into the public consciousness just as quickly as she'd entered it, leaving behind no biography, no identity, only a story that refused to settle. The foundation, now named Unseen First Steps, grew with a speed no one expected. Within 3 months, distribution centers were operating in 7 cities across the US and Greece. Every Friday, hundreds of kids stood in lines that wrapped around blocks, not for autographs, not for food, not for photos, but for a single, quiet gesture, a pair of shoes and a nod that said, "You belong here." Local organizers ran things with heart. Teachers volunteered, coaches wept. Kids smiled in disbelief as they were handed high tops in their size, often for the first time in their lives. And across every location, a photo of Giannis barefoot on the court hung above the door, next to a plaque that read, "Because you showed up." Despite the expansion, Giannis remained intensely involved. Weekly calls with regional directors, surprise visits to locations, even handwritten letters to kids who wrote to the foundation, which had become a growing stack. He read every single one. Some were one-liners. "I made my school team, thanks." Others were confessions. "I almost stopped playing. I didn't want people to laugh at my shoes." But many simply said, "You saw me." And yet, none of them were from her. Not once did the original girl write. No thank you, no hint, no cryptic signature. She had vanished like vapor, leaving behind only momentum. The staff stopped asking who was she and started saying with almost spiritual certainty, "She'll come back when it's time." Giannis didn't believe in fate, not in the way people usually meant it, but he did believe in rhythm, how some moments moved like music you had to trust. He felt her presence like a note that kept replaying, urging him towards something just beyond comprehension. That night had been a spark, but what if she'd been a sign? And then, in July, the letter arrived. No postmark, no return address, no fanfare, just a plain envelope, slid through the crack under the door of the Milwaukee Center. The staff found it the next morning, sitting on the entry mat. Inside was a folded piece of lined paper, written in blocky pencil. It read, "You didn't see me. You remembered me. Thank you. Z." That was it. No date, no age. Just a letter from someone calling herself Z. They brought it to Giannis that same afternoon. He read it twice, then a third time. He sat back in his chair and held the paper like it might dissolve. "Z," he murmured. "Just Z." He didn't smile. He didn't cry. He nodded. "She was never invisible," he said quietly. "She just needed someone to keep her place in the world warm." From that moment, unseen first steps evolved. It wasn't just about shoes anymore. It was about presence. It was about remembering the kids no one asked about. The ones who drifted out of programs and never came back. The ones who showed up once with too big dreams and too small resources. New initiatives were added. Mentorships, school partnerships, mobile courts that brought the game to shelters and underfunded neighborhoods. Every new branch of the work was stamped with one symbol, a single letter, Z. At press events, people asked what it stood for. Giannis always gave the same answer. It stands for the kid you didn't see. The movement gained traction in sports media. Athletes from all leagues, from WNBA to Premier League soccer, began referencing Z moments. Those flashes where they remembered why they started or who first believed in them. It became a kind of cultural shorthand. Don't forget your Z. Some mocked it, of course. The world always mocks what it doesn't understand. But the echo couldn't be ignored. Back in Milwaukee, Giannis became more reflective. He started speaking less during interviews, but when he did, he spoke from a different place, one beyond competition. He told young players, make the bucket, win the game, but don't forget why the court matters. During practices, he took time between drills to watch, not the starters, not the shooters, but the 10th man. The water boy, the quiet kid on the bench who hadn't touched the ball all scrimmage, because he knew now more than ever that greatness isn't always loud. Sometimes it just walks in quietly, in socks. That fall, he hosted a youth summit in Milwaukee. He refused to headline it. Instead, he let the kids speak. One after another, teenagers told their stories of exclusion, of humiliation, of deciding to show up anyway. A 13-year-old named Layla read a poem about playing on asphalt so hot it burned through her soles. A boy from Detroit told the crowd he only owned cleats and used them for everything: basketball, school, even church. And in the middle of it all, a girl stepped up. Not in purple, not in socks, but in Giannis's shoes, still too big. She didn't say her name, didn't need to. The crowd went silent. She didn't cry. She didn't falter. She simply said, "If you can see me now, it means you already did." She left the stage with the calm of someone who knew her presence wasn't owed to anyone. After the summit, she disappeared again. No photos, no interviews, only footprints, real this time, left across a temporary court that would soon be packed up and shipped to another city. And maybe that's the truth at the heart of the whole story. Not that a superstar gave away his shoes, not that a girl made a shot, but that both of them did something almost no one does anymore. They saw each other, not for what they were, but for what they could be. Giannis would go on to win more games, maybe more titles, maybe not. The league would change, as it always does. But wherever he went, there would always be one line in his bio no one could touch. He remembered Z, and when kids walked into unseen first steps locations around the world, barefoot and afraid, they'd be greeted with a question on the wall, a sentence written in simple lettering, echoing back to that single, unforgettable night. What if you're not waiting to be seen? What if someone's already waiting to remember you? And somewhere, maybe watching, maybe just smiling from afar, a girl in two big shoes would know she never missed her shot. She simply made the world take one.